Folks, the time is almost here. It is November, which means Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet are officially releasing in just a little over 2 weeks at the time of filming. Now, there's not much we can really do right now. They're releasing a trailer about once every 10 days. That might increase this month. That might even decrease. So whenever there's a new trailer, you gotta analyze that. But I wanted to make a video going over a couple things that you can do to kind of prepare yourself for this new generation of Pokemon. Now, I have 7 things listed here, but really there's 8. Because the first thing you can do is go ahead and subscribe to Botox Media to be up to date on everything in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'm going to be covering these games like crazy. Every time there's a new trailer, every time there's a new leak, we're going to start getting those soon. And I guess that's actually a bonus. If you're going to avoid leaks, get off the internet, because that's coming soon. I think I saw Chinese copies are out in the wild. But without further ado, let's go over our 7 core topics of the day, starting with figuring out your starter Pokemon. So this is something that's kind of obvious, and to a lot of you, a lot of this stuff might be obvious, but you got to figure out what your starter is. Now, we don't know the evolutions at all yet. We haven't even seen the second stage, let alone the third and final phase for the starter Pokemon Quaxly, Fuecoco, and Sprigatito. But figure out what Pokemon starter you're going to be picking this generation. That is obviously important. This might be something you decide a little later on once leaks start coming out, or once the Pokemon Company decides to reveal their evolutions. For me, though, I kind of just always go based on that first initial form, and for me, that's going to be Quaxly. And alongside this, make sure you pick a nickname. If you like to nickname your Pokemon, go ahead and have that planned out. This happens to me all the time with Pokemon games, where like I know I'm going to play a Pokemon game, and then it gets me to that nickname screen, and I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about this at all. Now, like I said, I'm picking Quaxly. Try to be more creative than others, Maybe don't pick Donald Duck. Everybody on the internet, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. So maybe be a little bit more creative than that. Obviously, Sprigatito, that's a cat. You can name it after your cat. Fuecoco, that's like a weird crocodile pepper. Maybe name that one Crocodile. That's creative. Moving on to number 2, and this is kind of subjective. Once again, leading into the release, we might get more information on this. But figure out what Pokemon you're actually going to use on your team. Now, with a new generation, I always like to exclusively use a new Pokemon from that generation. You might be different. You might see Hypno and be like, oh, I need that Hypno on my team. But figure out which of the new Pokemon, or even just Pokemon in general, we know are in the game, and kind of map out your team. And if you really want to get detailed, you can start looking at the trailers, analyzing where each Pokemon appears. I think there's probably some other videos on YouTube. I think Philly Beats You did one, kind of showing off where every single Pokemon we know about, where they are in the game based on the trailers, piecing that together. Just map out your team. Figure out what Pokemon you're planning on using. Now, this is another thing that, once again, changes with time, and, you might see a Pokemon that weren't announced that you see in the game. Like, I remember Sword and Shield was coming out, and then I saw Phalanx, and I was like, oh, obviously I want that on my team. Best fighting type ever, Squeak Squad, my legendary Phalanx. Shiny Phalanx. But yeah, figure out what Pokemon you're going to use in your team. Like I said, I mostly go for new Pokemon. You can also go for new forms like the Paldean Wooper, or even just evolutions of old Pokemon like Grafaiai, although that is a great new Pokemon. Farigiraf, the evolution of Girafarig, or even Paldean Wooper. So plenty of options. Cerebi is a great resource, which is actually going to get into our next thing. They have a list of every Pokemon we know is in the game, but just not like locations yet, because we don't officially know where every Pokemon is. So use Cerebi, great resource. Figure out what Pokemon are in the game, and figure out which Pokemon you're going to be using on your team through your adventure in the Paldea region. Now, when a new Pokemon game is revealed, I think everybody kind of lumps themselves into one group, being which version they're going to actually end up buying on release day. This time we have Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet with the 2 new mascot legendaries, Koraidon and Miraidon, of course representing past and present, or actually future, sorry. But there's always more stuff beyond that. We know the professors vary based on game, and then there's always exclusive Pokemon. Now, once again, we don't know every exclusive Pokemon to each version of the game yet, but once again, going back to Cerebi, they have a great resource. These are the Pokemon so far that we know are exclusive to each version. So for Pokemon Scarlet, you're going to have access to the Tyranitar line, so that's Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar. You're also going to get Stonejourner from Galar, Koraidon, the new legendary, as well as Armarouge or Armarouge, the new fire psychic Pokemon. Then, for Pokemon Violet, you're going to be getting the Salamence line, which I think is much better than the Tyranitar line, personally. But you'll also be getting Ice-Q, from Galar. You'll be getting Miraidon, the futuristic Pokemon, which actually, I just realized, we don't even know the legendary types yet. That's crazy. And then as well as Ceruledge, which is like the counterpart to Armorogue, or Armarouge. Armorogue, probably. So, figure out which, also, Ceruledge, Fire Ghost. What a cool typing. Way better than Fire Psychic. Get out of here, Pokemon Scarlet. I'm personally, if you cannot tell, going for Pokemon Violet. I think the future setting is very exciting. There have been rumors and potential leaks that there's going to be a whole new mechanic we don't know about called Paradox Pokemon, where certain Pokemon will appear in Pokemon Scarlet that are based on the past, and they'll have like kind of like, you know, more like ancient, kind of like caveman-esque forms, whereas Pokemon Violet will have futuristic forms of Pokemon, kind of like, I imagine like a Magnezone, kind of like futuristic version could happen there, something along those lines, right? So figure out which version is right for you. Really for me, I'm actually getting the dual pack, but Pokemon Violet is going to be my main version. I'm very excited to be riding around on that Miraidon. Alright, now we're getting to the stuff that I think is actually like not as obvious. This is just kind of like prepping your Pokemon and your Switch for these new games, and this won't apply to everybody, but if you're a dedicated Pokemon player, this is something that happens to me every single year with Pokemon, going back to when Pokemon Bank came out. Organize your Pokemon boxes. I always forget to do this, and then when I have to load up Pokemon Home and figure out where Pokemon are, it's just a pain. Obviously, there's different organization methods. You can do your living decks, you know, order them by the Pokédex number. You can organize by shiny. You can organize by legendary. You can organize by Pokemon that you just used, period, and nicknamed or something. But organize your Pokemon boxes and get them all figured out. There's a lot of Pokemon games on Switch now. I have to go through Pokemon Sword, Shield, Brilliant Diamond, Arceus, and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and just figure out what's actually happening. So that's going to take me a little bit of time because I have a lot of random Pokemon thrown in there, especially because of Arceus and Let's Go, where you're just catching Pokemon nonstop. So maybe release some Pokemon, just free up space, have that ready. That's not something you want to have to deal with when you're trying to play through the game and grind through the game and, you know, breed your, I guess you can't breed in this game, but, you know, doing whatever. Make sure your Pokemon Home is nice and organized, and if you aren't subscribed to Pokemon Home, consider doing that. It's $20 a year, I think. It's or $3 a month, alternatively. And it's just a nice little bonus thing. Connect all your games. Be ready for when Scarlet and Violet do eventually get Pokemon Home support, so you can just transport all those Pokemon in and have that ready to go whenever the games do get Pokemon Home support. Next up is something that you actually are very limited on time for. There are currently 2 events going on in the US. Now, for Canada and Europe, I think it's a little different. But in the US, GameStop actually just finished doing an event for a Genesect and a Volcanion. You have to go to your local GameStop and pick up a code, and then you put that code into Pokemon Sword and Shield, and you'll get those Pokemon. That's obviously going to be nice to have in Scarlet and Violet whenever we can get those in there, assuming they're in the national decks. That event just ended on the 29th, but there's a chance your GameStop could still have a code. Doesn't hurt to ask. But Target right now is doing an event for Marshadow. Now, we don't know if any of these Pokemon are going to be in Scarlet and Violet, but it's good to have those. Always pay attention to events. You never know when a Pokemon will be usable in the next game, so it's just good to have those. Store them in your Pokemon Home box, maybe make a box for, you know, mythical Pokemon, and get that ready to go. This next one is something I've been working on over the past couple of weeks, and that is just finish up the other Pokemon games on Switch, or even just other Pokemon games in general if you haven't already. Last year, they basically released 2 at once, because we got Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and then 2 months later, we got Legend Arceus in January. I played I played a lot of Legends Arceus, and I'm pretty content with my time with that game. I didn't do all like the master challenges or whatever, but pretty content with my time with that game. But Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I actually did not finish. I did not beat those games. I was not a big fan of them, but I don't like leaving a Pokemon game unfinished, so I've been going back and just finishing those up. Alternatively, you can also go and play the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC. Just, you know, these are just things that keep you coming back. They just announced the next Max Raid battle event for Pokemon Sword and Shield that's just going to last until the game eventually gets shut down whenever the servers go down. So you can go do some max raids with friends, do some the raid explorers, whatever it was in the DLC. And yeah, play that DLC if you haven't yet, because it had exclusive Pokemon that may or may not be playable in Scarlet and Violet, but still, just good to have all that stuff ready. If you're a core, dedicated Pokemon player, it's nice to just have these things ready. It's easy to forget with how many Pokemon games they do release, but it's easy to not keep up as well. It gets pretty hard. Even as someone like me who's making a Pokemon video, I didn't beat the Gen 4 remakes. I should probably do that before these new games come out. So if you haven't, go play those remakes, go play Legends Arceus, and then go finish off that Sword and Shield DLC. if you have time. Of course, that's obviously very subjective. If you're busy, then you won't have time, but go do that. And lastly, your mileage may vary, but find a squad. Now, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is the first completely open world co-op Pokemon adventure. You can play with up to 4 friends, or I guess 3 friends, so 4 players total. Online, seamless multiplayer, run around the overworld together, do battles together. If you're in a wild encounter, your friends can just watch you do that encounter, and that's just a lot of fun. They'll be exploring the towns together, doing all these little overworld puzzles, that kind of thing, doing quests together, and that's awesome. Doing the Terra raid, the Crystal raids, whatever they're called. That's exciting. Make sure you have your squad ready, figure out who you're going to be playing with. And if you don't have someone to play with, consider joining my Discord. That is linked down in the description. I'm going to make a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet chat so people can just talk about the game in there, as well as add each other to maybe play the game together, do raids together, and just have a good time. So make sure you have your friends ready on standby for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. With that said, I think that is going to do it. Those are 7 with 2 bonus things that you should be doing to get ready for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We have just a little over 2 weeks now until release. I'm excited to be making content for you all, as well as maybe I'll stream. If you want to see me stream, let me know. But and as going back to that last point, like I said, join the Discord. Would really appreciate that. You'll meet a lot of other Pokemon players in there. We already have a ton of Pokemon players excited for Scarlet and Violet in the Discord. So if you're looking for people to play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with on release day, that is definitely a worthy resource. Reddit and like the Cerebi forums, there's a lot of people, so it can get kind of muddled, but a nice tightly knit Discord community is always nice. But there you all have it. Thank you all so much for watching. If there's anything else I missed that you should be doing to get ready for Scarlet and Violet, let me know down in the comments below. Help some other people out. Help your other Pokemon masters out. And until next time, folks, peace.